can I believe in gods if I don't know if they exist or not? There is no proof or sign for me that refutes that. Thank you very much. Many things in our material world are not seen. Perhaps many of you know it, some of you may not know it, that to this date, nobody has seen an atom. Nobody has seen it. And yet we learn the school in the textbooks that there is an atom. We are made of atoms. This body is made of atoms. Nobody has seen it. Not to talk about subatoms. How do they figure out? How did this knowledge about atom come about? By looking at the impact of the atom. The impact of this atom, atoms, is this universe. So by studying the impact, they figured out that there are atoms. And now they are getting into subatoms and sub-subatoms. And they come to a conclusion now which is based on assumption. Science is not an exact science, no, like we normally think. It's based on assumption. The assumption is that there was a time or there was no time when all this universe, and even if there are universes more than one, all these universes were contained in a small dot that is something like trillionth time of a full stop that you can write with your pen. You cannot even think about this. A trillionth time of a full stop that you can write with your pen, a dot that you can write with your pen. And yet, we believe there are atoms, and there was this phenomenon. Based on what? Based on what we have learned. We have never landed on the sun. And it is almost impossible at this point. We cannot even think of landing on the sun, of sending an mission to the sun. And yet we know, by studying the constellation of stars and everything, that whatever substances you have on this planet, you also have on the sun. Same substances. But there is one additional. It's called Helios or something. And this Helios makes this sun so hot that it is almost impossible for you to stand the heat. All these are based on assumptions and based on the study of the impact. So similarly, by looking at you, by looking at me, you looking at me looking at you, and the machinery that we are carrying, this machinery of the body, forget God and gods, there should be at least some intelligence. It cannot be by accident. It is impossible that by accident you just come up like that. And modern physicists like Michio Kaku and others, the Japanese physicists, they all come to this conclusion that there should be some intelligence, some law. When Newton found, or rather discovered, not found, discovered this law of gravity, the church was against him. How can you say that this law governs the entire universe? What is there left for God to do? Because heavens are God's domain. That was the understanding in those days. And yet now we take Newton for granted. We take his law, his formula for granted. But one thing, I was studying a book just now, and reading that book, it occurred to me that there is one factor in Newton's law that has been totally forgotten. It has not been taken on account. An apple falls, and there is a law of gravity pulling this apple downwards. But not all apples on the trees keep falling. There is a factor there, the ripeness of the apple. If it is not ripe enough, it won't fall. I am not a scientist, but I am studying a very interesting book, and as I study, it emerges that that factor has never been taken on account. The ripeness of the apple. If the apple is not ripe, it won't fall. So if the apple is not ripe and is not falling, what is the other law? We are trying to find that law now. Even scientists there are so many different theories just for this small, simple thing. Stephen Hawking was talking about Big Bang. Now almost all physicists, they agree that this universe is without beginning and therefore without ending. Big Bangs are happening even right now. So if Big Bangs continue to happen, can we safely say now that there was a Big Bang from which this whole entire show started? It may be there, it may not be there. All assumptions. Similarly, religions tell us that you see this impact, there should be a God. Science is telling us if there is this impact, there should be some kind of intelligence. The Vedic tradition says, do not get into that discussion. Whether you call it intelligence or you call it God, the Vedic science is only using that. The word that. It's not even calling that God, intelligence. So it is open to discussion. Vedic science is open to discussion, what now we refer to wrongly as Hinduism, because there is no ism. It's not a belief system. It's open to discussion. You can call that superintelligence, you can call that God, and Vedas thousands of years ago, they declare whatever attribute, whatever name you give to that, that remains one. Albert Einstein, even on his deathbed, he was still trying to find the formula, one formula that can define everything. He could not. Right now, a lot of scientists, they feel they are getting to some kind of solution to find that formula. But the formula was already given. If we look behind, not look before us, we look behind the solution, the formula was given already in the Rig Veda, written 5,000 years ago. But it says that the knowledge was there from time immemorial. So, by looking at this, your question is right. Gods. Gods means divine elements. There are elements which are not fully grasped, fully understood by us. For want of a better word, we call them divine elements. So these divine elements, these gods, cannot be seen. Have you seen that clip of a small boy talking to a professor. The professor is asking the boy, "What are you doing?" And the boy or a girl, I don't remember now, says, "I'm praying." Praying to whom? To God. Have you seen God? No. Then why do you pray? And after a while, this boy, this little boy, I don't remember how the dialogue continues. And the professor is saying, "But that is nonsense." And the boy says, "Have you seen sense?" The professor is bewildered. He cannot reply. He said, "If you have not seen sense, how can you say it is nonsense?" We can study the cause from the impact. You understand the impact, you can assume, you can have your assumption. And your assumption is as good as mine, as anybody else's. These are all assumptions. There is nothing definite. If you know exactly, then you have solved the mystery. And the moment you know exactly, that's the moment of moksha. You are above this mystery, you become one with the mystery. You never come back to tell me what it was. You become one with all that is.